Hi, this is Stephanie Powers. You're listening to TV Confidential.
Welcome to the grand finale of Ringo's Yellow Submarine. Yay. For the past 25 weeks, Ringo Starr has been bringing you a fantastic collection of music and memories from the days when the Beatles ruled the charts.
Doug Thompson's on the line with us. Doug Thompson, award-winning writer and producer of many radio programs and radio TV documentaries, including 3 radio series with John Candy. Doug is sharing some memories of working with John Candy. We'll also talk about some of the other people that Doug has worked with throughout his career, which include both Ringo Starr and Jim Henson. You can follow Doug Thompson on Facebook. One of the, you did I think this was in the 80s, maybe the late 70s or the 80s. You'll correct me. You did a 25-part radio series with Ringo Starr. How did that come about?
When I was at Chum Radio in Toronto, I had co-produced a 12-hour documentary on the Beatles in 1970. And that was syndicated around the world to over 100 radio stations. And in '83, I had become friends with a guy named Tom Rounds who owned ABC Watermark, and that was the company that did Casey Kasem's American Top 40. And other shows, all kinds of other shows. And so I was in LA doing interviews with record producers on a show that we were doing in Canada. And my phone rang at 9. I was staying at the Continental Hyatt House on Sunset. And my phone rang at 9 a.m. and it was Tom Rounds. He didn't say hi. He didn't say, "Hey, Doug, it's Tom Rounds." He just started off the conversation with, "How'd you like to write for a Beatle?"
Now, you had produced at least one documentary on the Beatles up to this point, probably more than one, you'll correct me. So I imagine that was like a dream phone call.
Oh, absolutely it was. Yeah, I had done the one at in Toronto in 70, and then in 80 when John died, John Lennon died, I did another one immediately within 2 days of his death. And then in 81 I did a 3-hour special that ran on NBC Radio's The Source as well as in Canada. And so I'd done 3 at that point.
I'm going to ask you a similar question about Ringo than I did about John, in that you worked with John at the height of his film career. Ringo was not a movie star, but Ringo was still touring. Ringo was still recording at the time, so he was very busy. Was it difficult to pin him down to do the show and to put it together?
No, ABC had made the deal with him before they made the deal with me, obviously.
Okay.
He was being paid to do this, and he was getting I believe he was getting a percentage of the revenue sales from commercials. Anyway, so he was all set, and at the time, he and his wife were living in the white house that John Lennon had owned called Tittenhurst Park. Mm-hmm. You know, that's on the cover of the Hey Jude album at the back there, and John Lennon had built a studio at the back, which was connected to the house through the kitchen. And so we recorded there, and he was prepared. We were there for almost a week to 10 days in January of '83. And then we came back again in February of '83 and did another week with Ringo. Originally, the first couple of days, we just did interviews with him, which would just be cut in various parts, and the rest of the time he actually read the script that I wrote, introducing. He was just a disc jockey basically for that part, reading the introductions and backsells to the thing. And then at the very end of it all, after the summer, we ran through it the whole summer of '83, and ABC had made a deal with him that he would do a live phone-in show from KABC in Los Angeles as the final show. And he said to the guys at ABC, "Well, is Doug going to be there?" "Well, no, he's not going to." "Well, I want Doug there because he knows more about the Beatles than I do. I was just there."
That's like one of the best compliments.
Yeah, I appreciated that.
Being both the music professional you were and the Beatles fan you were, what did it feel like the first time Ringo read copy that you had written?
Well, I kind of detached myself from the fan part when we were recording, because he had to read the scripts, and there were only a couple of times that he wanted to change something that he wasn't really comfortable with, and so it was different. The great thing was that we were all professionals in there. It wasn't I got the fan thing out of the way by asking him to sign a Hard Day's Night poster for me. So it was professional. But the final day in February was fascinating because, unbeknownst to Tom Rounds and I, who were there, as well as Corinne Baldessano, who was with ABC, who was with us as well, was that the last recording day, he had his engineer set up his drum kit in the studio, and he was willing to give us a drum lesson on tape to show how he played, because he's a left-handed, right-handed drummer, kind of thing. And so I was geeking out as a fanboy that day. There he was in the studio playing his drums, those famous drums that we heard for so many years.
I understand that John Candy, he was not an accomplished drummer, but he loved the drums, and I understand that a drum kit was set up in the radio in his radio studio for one of the shows that you did with him.
Yeah, well, for Radio Candy in Frostback Studios, yeah, he had a drum kit set up in there just in the corner of the voice booth, and occasionally, if he was feeling he wanted to get his frustrations out or just wanted to take a break from whatever he was doing in his office, which is basically just literally around the corner from the studio, just look around the hallway, he'd come in and just bash on the drums for a little bit. The fun thing about that was that Chris Candy, who was maybe around 5 or 6 at the time, came in one day when Levon Helm of the band, the drummer from the band, happened to be coming in to do bits with us. And Chris is bashing away on the drums, and Levon says, "Here, let me show you how to do this." So I said to our engineer, Jeff Sheridan, I said, record this. So basically, he's giving Chris Candy, Levon Helm is giving Chris Candy a drum lesson for almost a half an hour. And Chris got the cassette of that as a kid. I said, "Chris, have you ever found it?" I talked to him recently. He said, "No, I haven't found it yet, but I'm still looking."
Well, I hope you hung on to that, because I was going to say, it's not only radio gold, but life gold, you know what I'm saying?
It's the only copy, too. We didn't do it as a copy. It was right to cassette and gave it to Chris.
Yeah.
We gave it to John, who gave it to Chris.
Okay, well, Doug Thompson's with us. Doug Thompson, 60-year broadcast veteran, both in radio and television. He's worked with John Candy. He's worked with Ringo Starr. He's worked with Jim Henson. He's worked with more than 500 singers, songwriters, and musicians in the course of his broadcasting career.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
One more item. If you're starting a company, particularly one that is in an emerging market, you know that averting any sort of legal dispute is crucial to your business plan. Our friends at Tectonic Law offer an array of services that can help you avoid and preempt future litigation while also developing and protecting your intellectual property and intangible assets. Tectonic Law serves the needs of a host of emerging industries throughout California and beyond, including industrial designers, beverage makers, artists, farmers, retail stores, health practitioners, wellness experts, cosmetics manufacturers, nonprofit organizations, innovators in sustainable practices, and libraries. Go to tectoniclaw.com to learn more about how Tectonic Law can help your business thrive. tectoniclaw.com. Rock solid representation for groundbreaking industries.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
Ed Robertson, thanking you for listening to the TV Confidential podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button so that you won't miss our next episode.
Hi, this is Julie Newmar, and you are listening to TV Confidential.
We were talking about this off mic. One of the things you did, before John Candy came into your life, but you did a documentary on the Monkees at the height of their popularity, 66, 67. I'm guessing this is around the time they toured in between seasons of their show. How did that project come about?
Well, RCA, which was the label, they were on Coal Gems, and RCA owned Coal Gems, I guess, suggested that maybe Mickey Dolenz would make a good interview. So one of the disc jockeys from Chum went and interviewed him and brought the interview back, and we put an hour special together on the Monkees, which was, at the time, you're right, they were just as big as the Beatles for those 2 years, mm-hmm. Really. They were insanely popular. And all of the things that I did at Chum, the documentaries, the Beatles and the Monkees and all that, they were so well received by the listenership that the station was forced to rerun them a few months later. So that one ran a few times. And the interesting thing about that is that years later, I interviewed 3 of the 4 Monkees, Mike Nesmith, Davy Jones, and Mickey again, myself. And Mickey did remember that. He said, yeah, I remember we got a copy of that, and that was really well done, well put together. So thank you. So, because he was, at that time, Mickey was really getting involved in synthesizers, mm-hmm. which was really new in '66. Mm-hmm. And eventually he would go over to England and become a director and marry his wife at the time, Samantha. So, yeah, those things were just kind of fell into my lap, and there were things I'd never done a documentary of any kind before that, so we just kind of plowed ahead and made our mistakes, and hopefully it turned out okay, and I guess it did.
And the fact that he remembered you and was complimentary of what you'd done, I mean, I'm sure that felt good.
Of course. Yeah, you know, it always feels good.
Yeah.
Somebody compliments you. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, but by the way, you mentioned the Toronto Blue Jays a little earlier in our conversation.
Yeah, sorry we lost.
Well, I live in L.A. My team is the San Francisco Giants, and so I was rooting for Toronto, and so.
That was the thing about John, too, with John Candy. When he just moved to L.A. Around 87, I think it was, every time I'd go down to either work with him or just visit, he'd always tell me this was way before the Internet, obviously, so bring all the Toronto papers you can. Bring me a week's worth of papers. So he always wanted to know what was going on back in Toronto.
Yeah, well, you know, like I said, you can move to a different city, but your hometown loyalties or your loyalty to your hometown sports teams or whatever, that never really goes away.
Kermit, we have 3 minutes and 30 seconds to go. What are we going to do?
There's no reasoning with her when she gets like that.
There's no reasoning with her even when she doesn't get like that.
What are they going to do, Kermit?
Panic!
All right, just a couple more questions, if I can. We mentioned in our open that you also worked with Jim Henson for a while. How did that come about?
Well, in the early '80s, I was freelancing at a recording studio in Toronto called Eastern Sound, and they were partners with a company that was video called VTR Productions. They were actually joined in the same building, but they were joined by a wall. And Jim Henson at the time was shooting Fraggle Rock, the TV series, at VTR. Mm-hmm. So but he and Jim Frank Oz had just finished the movie Dark Crystal, or The Dark Crystal, in England. And that was the first time that I'd worked with them because, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but it's a very dark movie.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they have these kind of vulture-like birds called Skeksis, and he had created a language for these Skeksis birds, but he found that in the test screenings with families that the mothers or the fathers were actually having to read. He had print of what the Skeksis were supposed to be saying on the screen, the bottom of the screen there, and they were reading them to their kids, so there was a lot of noise in the theater. He said, oh, this won't work. So basically, he had to bring the actors in he flew the actors in from England, and we re-recorded all of their dialogue into English, and then they flew back, and they cut it into the film. So that was the first time I worked with him. And then after that, Frank Oz came in, and we did a whole Miss Piggy thing, and he was shooting a television special at CFTO here in Toronto, television station called The Fantastic Miss Piggy Special. And I did the post-production. I was the post-production audio supervisor for that. And we worked on that for, that was close to a week to 10 days. And the work ethic of Jim Henson was phenomenal. We would start at 9 o'clock in the morning in the studio, but he'd already had 2 meetings. He'd have breakfast meeting at 7 and another meeting at 8, and then we'd work from 9 till noon. Then he'd go off and have a lunch meeting, and then we work from 1 till, say, 5. And many nights he'd have meetings after that while he was doing stuff, and he always tried to get back. Every Friday night he'd always leave Toronto as late as he could to get back to New York so he could sleep in his own bed for the weekend. But he was he was such a nice man. So is Frank Oz. I've been very, very fortunate to work with people who are absolutely wonderful people, as well as being hugely talented.
Yeah, well, you're not only hugely talented, Doug, you're a very outgoing, gregarious person. It's been a pleasure to chat with you. I hope we'll have a chance to have another conversation on our program. We've only scratched the surface of your career in broadcasting.
At any time, and tell those construction guys they got to stop doing that.
Well, it's actually been pretty good the last 15 minutes. So
that's good.
I guess.
I will say that I do want to recommend to everybody, if they're really interested in John Candy, that they should really read Paul Meyer's book, John Candy, A Life in Comedy, because it is really, really well researched, well written, and it's a phenomenal inside look at the man that brought so much pleasure to millions. I could
not have said that better myself. Are you on Facebook? Are you on social media? Can people follow you? Can people follow you there?
I'm on Facebook, yeah, and under my real name too.
Okay, all right. You can follow Doug Thompson on Facebook. Doug Thompson, thank you for spending part of your day with us.
Ed, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go. And pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-222-0511. 800-222-0511. Again, that's 800-222-0511.